Hello, everyone, and inside today's episode of Locked On Canadiens, there is more behind-the-scenes draft footage coming from the Canadiens. There's a new women's hockey league, and a former coach has some words about his time with the Montreal Canadiens and Cole Caufield. All that and more inside today's show.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 906 of Locked On Canadiens. We are your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day of the week, wherever you get your daily podcasts. And thank you, as always, for making us your first listen or your first watch if you are watching us on YouTube right now, which also, thank you very much for subscribing. We are so close to hitting that 3,000 subscriber mark, which is a wild, wild thing. Hopefully we get there before the rookie tournament kicks off. You know to do recommend us to your hockey-loving friends. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matlin. I'm joined, as always, by the active stick, Laura Saba. And Laura, I know it is raining in Montreal. It rained while I was driving back and forth on I-90 all day for my job. How are we doing on what is settling into now being a very nice Tuesday evening here?
Well, I am drenched. For those of you who can see me on YouTube, I don't know if it shows. I literally live a block and a half from a metro station. I walked out of the metro, literally there was a deluge coming down. And then by the time I got to the house, it was sunny out. So I had to hastily try and get myself put together before, because Scott was literally waiting for me to record. Anyway, that's how I'm doing. How are you doing?
I mean, I drove from Buffalo to Syracuse to pick up a keg to deliver the Syracuse to Rochester before driving back to Buffalo before I drive back to Syracuse tomorrow. So I'm getting very, very intricately acclimated to driving on I-90. Don't worry, I have audiobooks. They are great. They are a lifesaver. We are not here to talk about audiobooks, though it is the off season. If we want to do a whole episode on audiobooks, we probably could at this point. We're here to talk things about the Montreal Canadiens, and we are in that quiet part of summer. It's PTO season now, where we've answered questions about this. It doesn't look like Canadiens are going to bring in anybody on a PTO, which is fine. It is what it is. But what we did get today announced for the Montreal Canadiens is that on August 31st, which is
Thursday.
I was going to say, I can't remember how many days are in this month here, but tomorrow being the 30th should have given that away to me. Everything's fine. Is that the Canadiens will be releasing the behind the scenes draft video. And I assume it'll be similar to the one they did last year, where it was Nick Bobrov and Martin Lapointe and Chris Boucher and Kent Hughes. Everybody in the scouts are all together, and they're going through this, and we're getting footage from meeting with players and the scouting analysis and interviews with these players and everything. I'm so excited because I want to see the process behind what led David Reinbacher to the Montreal Canadiens. You and I have both now gotten to the point that we are of the similar mind on this, that it is not probably the pick we would have made, but it is one that we both understand at this current point in time. And we both like David Reinbacher, but I'm very curious because there's a lot of other picks in here. Maybe we're going to find out about what led to the Alex Newhook trade in here. Laura, I got to ask, what are you hoping to see out of this? Because last year, we know the Canadiens are usually very like hush hush, everything is quiet and together here. And they were very open with this video. They showed us a lot more than I was anticipating. And I'm kind of hoping that is the case again this year.
It's interesting, though, because last year their performance in the draft was universally praised, right? Like, Montreal really was the team that people were like, oh, they did a good job. Yeah, okay, it was a bit puzzling that they didn't go with Shane Wright, given the need for centers, blah, 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 all of that. But people thought that, they swung for the fences. They went for high upside. They also got some steals in terms of, guys like Owen Beck or Lane Hudson, drafting them where they did. I think it's going to be interesting to see what they release this year, knowing that universally they were not necessarily panned, but questioned on their performance or on their choices in the latest draft. What I'm hoping to see is really just a thought process about the later rounds. Like, that's what I want to see. Like, I don't think that draft video is going to explain why those two picks were given up for Alex Newhook, which was a big question. That's not going to be answered in this video. But why did they select the way that they did? Like, was it really, are they trying to like form position or whatever? And the video is going to come out on August 31st. That will be the day that I will record the mailbag. So don't forget to send your mailbag questions to lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. But also, I will watch the video. Hopefully, it comes out before I record. I'll watch the video, talk a little bit about it. There's plenty of stuff that's coming up in terms of prospects and things like that. I also may or may not drop a special segment, or that might be next week. So, just stay tuned and send me your mailbag questions. But what I'm hoping from this is I want to see a thought process as to why they picked the way that they did in the later rounds. Like, I understand the David Reinbacher at this point. I get it. I don't need any more explanation on that. And I like him. And yeah, it would be nice to see like why they chose him over, somebody else. But at the end of the day, I'm more questioning the depth in this last draft than anything else.
Yeah, I want to see what led to Florian Jacki as part of this team here. Like, which scout? Like, I want to know what about this person, besides being our younger brother, drew you to this player. What made you think that someone that you probably could have gotten later on is here? I want to know the thought behind that. Like, I want to know which scout was like Bogdan Kuniashkov, a name that none of us really knew about. And I want to know kind of like, what's the thinking behind this? What are the scouts saying? And there's only so much that will be shown because I get it. It's basically state secrets. There is levels to this game here. And I just want to see that peek in a little bit. I don't need you to give me everything. I don't expect you to give me everything because that's crazy talk, to be quite honest. That's asking a lot of an organization. And I understand why they would not. And I get that. But like you, we've kind of figured out Reinbacher and like Jacob Fowler, but like they went heavy on goalies. Which person got up and there was like, we need to go after goalies? Which person came up and made that stand in there and kind of put their stamp on that? Who went after some of the overage players in there, like a Luke Middlestad and etc. Some of these other players in there. There's so many like, I guess, unanswered questions that I have that we were able to rationalize some of the things in this, but there's still a lot that just has kind of left us scratching our heads. And I am really hopeful that this video kind of peels back some of the layers there, because I can understand things if you present me with an argument that makes logical sense here. If you go in there and I hear, well, he's got intangibles and he's got this, then I'm probably going to be a little bit more annoyed. But if you have someone like Chris Boucher is like, I was looking at, these underlying things from these games, from the data that I got from, this team here. And it's like, he does really well at retrieving the puck, something we might struggle with, or he's really good in this zone here. If you can present me actual evidence as to why, and not just look at him, he plays like a pro, that doesn't mean anything to me. And I think part of the big reason is in that last draft video, which I'm going to go back and watch after this because I'm very excited about this, is they gave us solid reasoning behind everything. They gave us reasons for why Lane Hudson, why Uri Slavkovsky, why Owen Beck, why Vincenz Roars. They did all those things, and I'm really hoping that is the case again this year.
I think, like, I also want to see some moments of, like, not necessarily levity, but like just how they interact, like how the scouting staff interacts with each other, like who gets listened to. We got a lot of insight last year with that. And I want to see, sort of, I don't think anyone in that room is dismissing another person's opinion or anything like that. But I want to see in terms of like, do they change their mind if they hear an argument? Like, let's say they really like this one player and another person says, actually, no, blah, blah, blah. And then, I think they have to sell Lapointe and Bobrov on this. So, I want to see how they come around to like a consensus. I know that there's like a final say, right? And I know obviously the GM has to go ahead with the final say, but I just want to see how the evolution of their argument and thought works. Like, I hope we get a little bit of a glimpse in that as well.
Yeah, like if there are disagreements, I want to kind of know who is arguing for what here. What are the voices in the room that are making themselves heard? And I'm sure that Habs Twitter will be zaprudering every split second of this video, as we always do, and I am guilty of that as well. I'm looking forward to tuning into that on the 31st. Laura and I will definitely have plenty of thoughts on that after we are done watching that. But there are more announcements today. There's a new women's hockey league coming. Montreal is part of that. We're going to dive into all that coming up next. But today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, and you can get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off their NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel, the app that is easy to use, and you can be on everything from point spread, player props, and more in any single game. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL and us here at Locked On. And as always, please make sure you are gambling responsibly anytime you bet on sports. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. I am Scott Matla, my co-host of the Active Stick. Today was a busier day in non-NHL news, but in very big news for 6 very lucky markets around the United States and Canada. The PWHL, the news kind of trickled out on Monday night that the league would be announcing its formation, and then they spoiled the launch of where the teams were by following all those teams immediately, which, who among us? There are 6 teams that are going to be featured in this league here, and if I remember correctly, it was Pittsburgh, New York, Boston. What team am I missing here?
It's Minneapolis, Boston, New York.
Why did I think Pittsburgh? I don't know
why.
Because
there is one in Pittsburgh, and they're losing their team.
That makes sense. But there will be the PWHPA was out of Pittsburgh. That's right. And then there will be a team in Toronto, a team in Ottawa, and a team in Montreal. They are eyeing adding more teams, I believe, in the near future. Is the likely rumor. This is the initial launch. Jared Book put together a really nice thread on Twitter and an article about the launch of this league that you can definitely go read from someone who's covered this in, from when the CWHL was still a thing through the early days of the PWHPA, the Dream Gap Tour, with Montreal getting a PHF team for last year and everything else. Jared's done a really good job covering that. Plus our friends at the Victory Press and the Ice Garden have all done a very good job at that, and all done it without being belittling to other people, which is an important part of this. Hockey itself is a very, I don't want to call it a niche sport because it's big enough to not be in there, but we should all be behind and supporting, these new things that are coming out without having to, pile on other people. But that's not the point of all this. The biggest point about all this is that you have all the best players coming from the PHF and all the players coming out of the PWHPA, players coming out of the NCAA, free agents who are out there, potential players coming from Europe as well, going into this draft here. It is going to be the biggest collection of talent that we've seen in women's hockey, short of the USA-Canada Series and the Olympics, World Championships, etc. Everyone should be very, very excited about this. And for the Montreal Canadiens, there are three contract spots. If I've read this correctly, there are 3 contract spots a team can have before the draft starts. They can sign 3 players and fill those spots. If you are the Montreal team, which I do not know their name, I have no insight to what their name will be, I imagine that one of those spots is going to go to Marie-Philip Poulin.
I believe so. This is where she's based, right? She's based outside of Montreal. And she played for the Montreal teams, in the past iterations of women's hockey league. She works for the Montreal Canadiens. I do believe that would be one of the free agents that any Canadian team would go after in terms of marketing. Like that's who they would want. I think Montreal would have an inside edge on that one. I really do. And in the same way that I do think that, if you're Boston, you're going hard after Hilary Knight.
I think it'd still be very funny if Hilary Knight stayed in Montreal, considering she was here.
She was in Montreal, yeah.
I was just saying, she was part of that team there. Unfortunately, that last year, the Montreal Les Canadiens, when they were, that team there, is that both Knight and Poulin only played a handful of games together due to injuries and other tournaments and everything else. And it's one of those like damn shame kind of moments. The biggest thing with this league here, and I've already seen teams like Toronto and the Rangers and other teams reach out about this, is I want the Canadiens to be a part of this. You know, the Rocket were always very good with having PWHPA players like Marie-Philip Poulin would come in to practice and at the games and everything else for the Rocket in their early seasons there before she was hired by the Canadiens. I want to see the Canadiens be involved in this. And I'm not saying they need to say on weekends they're not there, that the Bell Center is open for this. Like, get behind that, you know, have a night to introduce the players from this team whenever that team is drafted. Maybe have a couple of games, have a, you know, do a double header, have, you know, a game on Friday night where the Toronto team from the PWHL plays the Habs team. My apologies on that. The Montreal team from the PWHL on Friday night, and then Saturday night you have Habs Leafs for Hockey Night in Canada, and make that a weekend. I don't know what the scheduling is going to look like, but you can have games at Place Bell. They've done double headers there where the Rocket and the women's team both play there. Make the most of this opportunity because this is a big deal. Like I said, it's the best collection of talent from all the leagues in one place. There is not that division of they're in the PHF, they're in this, they're in the NWHL, they're in the CWHL, they're in this. They are all in one place. They are building to make the best possible outcome for women's hockey in there. And they're making it inclusive. They're working into writing into their CBA for players who are transgender or non-binary and other things here. It is progressive. It is important that we get behind and support this. So we're not doing, 5 years from now going, well, I really wish I could have seen, this player play, against Marie-Philip Poulin and Hilary Knight, et cetera, outside of the Olympics. You can see that all the time now.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited about that. I haven't watched as much women's hockey as I should have as someone who supported it because of my work schedule. I'm going to try to be more cognizant of that on this show now. It's like, I want to be able to talk about all the cool stuff this Montreal team is doing.
Yes. And I really do hope that it's going to breed rivalries, with Toronto and Ottawa. Like, it would be really nice to really not want Ottawa to have another nice thing. So, it's honestly going to be fun, and I'm really excited. I do hope that they do get to play at Place Bell a lot. It's a great venue. It's a great place to go. It's accessible by metro. I know it's probably a long shot to have them play the Bell Center, except for extremely major events like Scott was saying. But I think we have to get behind this because you got to think about it. There's not just one hockey team in town, and there doesn't need to be just one hockey team in town. You can cheer for multiple hockey teams, and you can hope that they're all great. How fun is it to cheer for Laval in the playoffs when they do make it, right? Just think about that. And it's it's all here, it's all accessible to us. The largest part of our fan base is concentrated here or within driving distance of here. How fun would it be to just always be cheering for something, and imagine when they're all good.
And here's my question now, and Laura and I do not have any insight on this whatsoever. We have not heard anything, and we are completely serious on this. What do you think the team name should be?
Oh, that one's rough. Honestly, that one's tough because they're the Canadiens have already existed, and you kind of I think the PWHL. I'm sorry. I think they kind of want to carve themselves their own niche a little bit. So I don't know. I would want them to be either something fun and Montreal related or something weighty and Montreal related.
I was going to say, they've been the Stars, they've been Le Canadien, the PHF team was the Force, which they had an absolutely beautiful logo and color scheme, which I'm sad it only lasted the year with this. And I'm just trying to think what it's going to be something that I'm probably not expecting, and I don't want it to be generic. I want it to stand out. The Force was great. This Canadien was great as well. The Calgary Inferno was great. A lot of these women's hockey teams are uniquely named, uniquely everything. And I want to keep that spirit with this. We'd love to hear your suggestions on this too. You can tweet us at LO_Canadiens or post us or whatever the hell it's called now in the YouTube comments. Just don't be rude. If you're going to be snarky and mean about it, we're just going to delete your comment because there's no place for that. We're here to support women's hockey in whichever form it has. However, coming up in our final segment, we waited on this one because we definitely had the most thoughts to go with this one. Dominique Ducharme was interviewed. Habs fans are not happy about what he said, and all that's coming up next. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. Laura has the mailbag on Thursday, so you can tweet her mailbag questions at @LO_Canadiens, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com if you've got longer questions, or put them in the YouTube comments. Just say mailbag question and a way to grab our attention in there. Laura will get to as many of those as she can. We haven't decided what we're doing for recording next week because it is Labor Day on Monday, which means Sunday recording is a little wonky. I am out of I will be coming back to Buffalo from a trip to the Adirondacks, so we're not.
You'll likely get an episode on Tuesday, I think.
Yes.
Also, like if you are sending longer questions, I do prefer they come in via Gmail. We are heavily moderating the YouTube comments as of this Monday, and so it might be a lot to wade through. So if you want to make sure that I see it, make sure it is sent to the Locked On Canadiens at Gmail account, please.
So we're going to dive into this last segment here. TVA had an interview with Dominique Ducharme, who is now coaching with the Vegas Golden Knights, I believe. He was asked about Cole Caufield and his thought, and this is in English, it says, and this is a photo screenshot. The Habs on Reddit account has the post for it, but I'm looking at it, and Dominique Ducharme is speaking about Cole Caufield. I did not slow him down, he said in English. I was not holding him back. It's an unfortunate coincidence. I'm sure if you told Cole about it, he'd tell you pretty much the same story.
I don't know that he would. I'm going to start the segment by saying we were not there, okay? We were not there, and anybody who has inside info to slip us, we've heard contradicting stories from quote unquote reliable sources off the record. So the one thing I will say though is that the proof is literally on the ice. Like the proof is literally in Cole Caufield's performance. Now, player slumps happen. Challenges happen. Like when you're a young player and you've got talent and you're not fully developed and you had a very long Stanley Cup run your rookie season or part of your rookie or whatever his rookie season was the one following the Stanley Cup run. Yes, things happen. Adversity, quote unquote, adversity happens. I think that is normal. I think what's not normal is how long it took to get out of it and how quickly the turnaround happened under a new coach. Like that in itself, to me, like I don't have to be in the room. I don't have to go and ask Cole Caufield. And I don't know what Cole Caufield's going to say, to be honest. Is he going to do the diplomatic, like hockey player, never say anything thing? Is he going to like try to like, be professional about it, which I would assume? Is he going to, it would be really funny if you were to badmouth him. I don't think that he has bad things to say about anybody. Like he's definitely like a cheerful kind of person who tries to avoid this kind of drama. He likes to be dramatic in terms of the way that he scores goals. I think that the proof is literally like you saw how quick the turnaround was. You saw how futile it looked for half a season and then how quickly it all quote unquote fixed itself. Like I think that in itself is just it's mind-blowing to me, like how it can't be obvious to everybody. And if you want to go any further, like there were the comments that were done by Jeff Petrie about Dominique Ducharme's tenure. There were veiled references by other players. A lot of the players weren't really, open about stuff because, like I said, they're very diplomatic. They're very boring. They don't want to rock the boat. But I mean, there was enough evidence there that the issue was not necessarily that. I don't think that, Dominique Ducharme was standing there being like, Cole, don't perform. I'm holding you back. But I think the environment in the locker room, I think like the tactics on the ice and the practices and things like that, like those things were not conducive to a good performance by Cole Caufield. So I think all of those things, like, like I feel like the way that the quote reads is like, I didn't hold him back. It was a coincidence or whatever. Like you don't necessarily have to be holding a player back, like by like physically either not allowing him to play or not allowing him to practice, or maybe like vice versa, making him practice too hard so he's not conditioned for ice time or whatever. Like, I don't think that necessarily he was doing that, or like even telling him like the incorrect things to do. I think just overall, like the environment that he bred in Montreal in that season just did not allow Cole Caufield to break out of his slump, to make any progress whatsoever. And then it was just so quick under Martin St. Louis. Like, I don't think Martin St. Louis is a magician. Like, he's a great like motivator, but he's not a wizard. He's just a man. Like, you know what I mean? So like, I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
The biggest thing with this is, and our friend Ian Boisvert kind of did the work on this, is one of the last games Ducharme was coach for, where Caufield played, he was on the third line with Yoel Armia and Ryan Poehling. Yeah, Caufield wasn't playing great, but like, I don't know what you're expecting from that. Under Martin St. Louis, he's averaging like 3.5 more minutes of ice time, and lo and behold, it seems to be working out pretty well. So like, I don't know what exactly his thought process was behind. I wasn't holding him back. You weren't exactly pushing him forward. And it's like you said, is that this team was built in a way that something just rotted through that. And that starts with whoever's on the bench there. We've seen bad coaches and the team falls apart because they have no leadership and they're just a mess. Like, but I've never quite seen anything from Stanley Cup final. I apologize for Maple, who just found her toy under the couch. Going from a Stanley Cup final where they're united, everybody is pulling in the same direction, to the GM just slamming, the breaking case of fire button in the plane there, and it all just going horribly wrong. Morale was probably low. Weber's done. Price is pretty much done at this point. Byron is pretty much done. Corey Perry is gone. Eric Stahl is gone. Guys are hurt. Nothing is going right. You as a coach have to find your way through the rough seas. I'm not asking you to be like a miracle worker in any way, shape, or form here. I don't think it's much to ask that, hey, you cut the young guy some slack and let him try to get himself right here. I didn't hold him back. You sent him down to the AHL and then had to call him back up because everybody got injured again anyways. And it's just like, he went down to the AHL and immediately started scoring goals again. He's not fully to blame, but to say he didn't have some hand in it in a system that didn't work, didn't make sense. How many episodes did we spend just going, none of this works. None of this makes any sense. And then here we are. He's not without blame. He's not fully to blame, but I'm not going to go there and be like, yeah, he definitely wasn't the one holding Caufield back. Everyone has a hand in rowing the boat in one way or another. And if you're the guy directing everybody and you can't get all the oars going in the right direction, you're just as at fault as the people on the oars themselves. You can only be as strong as the leader there. And like, this team was not in a great way. Like, truly, it was not a good season across the board in a lot of different ways. Few bright spots, but just a mess. Him saying he wasn't holding him back, I don't buy it. He wasn't the sole purpose, but it's when Martin St. Louis comes in and then Caufield immediately scores 20-something goals in the back half of the season on the last place team, and then comes out and scores at a near 50-goal pace before he had a shoulder injury. Something is not right here. It's like I said, Martin St. Louis is not a wizard, but he clearly seems to get whatever helps Caufield working here, whereas Ducharme, it just seems like couldn't care less. Could not care less at all. And here we are. That is the Dom Ducharme rant of this year. Hopefully it is the last time we have to talk about Dominique Ducharme talking about Cole Caufield again. I'm sure when Vegas comes to town, we will get this entire story rehashed for the umpteenth time. If you have thoughts or you have questions, at @LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. Maple wants you to, squeak or squeaky toy there. You can follow Laura at The Active Stick. Follow myself at Scott Matla on X or Twitter or whatever else. We are on some of the other apps as well. We will leave it up to you to find us there. She has the mailbag on Thursday. I will be back for the episode after that. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will see you all next time.